Hello students, today's agenda is to check homework. We'll be graphing inequalities and you'll be able to work on 3.6. Today students will be able to graph inequalities given the algebraic expression. And so basically we're doing this lesson just because I noticed that there was some confusion, especially with where the shading goes. Okay, so I'm gonna show you instances where you have the negative y, and that's where a lot of confusion was. Okay, when you have y equals mx plus b, meaning the y is lonely before the inequality symbol, it's as simple as, okay, this is my y-intercept, my initial point, y-intercept, initial point, and this is the rise over run, meaning the slope. Okay, so rise over run. Since we don't have anything, that means that the run is always 1. When the coefficient of x is lonely, it's just a whole number, then you put it over 1, or even a negative number. Okay, put it over 1. So this is always the initial point on y. And this time is -3, so 1, 2, 3, it's right there. And this means, I always put like a little sun because it represents the rise. Sun rises. And then this is the run, so I draw somebody running. Okay, if this is positive, it goes up. If it's negative, it goes down. If this is positive, it goes to the right. If it's negative, it goes to the left. Okay. And from this point, so this is my initial point, and then from there you rise and you run. So I start at -3, then I rise 2 and run 1, and that's where my other point. That will be sufficient. That will be enough to graph this line. However, I always say that you can repeat the slope to be more accurate. So 2, 1, 2, 1. Rise is +2, the run is +1. And you can also do the opposite of 2 over 1 is the same as going down 2, going left 1. Okay, make sure you change both signs. So -2, -1, -2, -1. So you can do that if you want, or you can just graph it from there. I just noticed one other thing that creates confusion is that if it's less or greater, then the line should be broken. Not like I did, should be broken. Okay? What does that mean? It means that it does not include the points laying on the line. But if you have less or equal to, greater or equal to, the equal, this little pencil makes the line solid. If you have a pencil, then you have more ink to close the line, to make it solid. Okay? If you don't have the little pencil, then there is not enough ink, so you will use less. So that's just little tricks that I show, but and this should not be a solid line, so it's just something like that. Okay, now for the shading, it's a lot easier when you have y by itself. It says, I just take the y and the symbol. Okay, so you have y is less than the line. This represents where the line is going to be placed, right? The initial point, and then rise and run. This is the line. But y is less than that line. And if this is my line, these are my values for y. The numbers that are less are down here. The negatives, these negatives are less than these positives and these few negative ones. Okay, these are less. So that's where my shade is going to go, where that line is. And so I just start to fill it right there. Okay, that's where the shading goes. Okay, again, you just graph the line. If there is no pencil, no equal sign, the line is going to be broken. They call it broken line or dotted. Either one is fine. And if the equal sign is in there, then you're going to have a solid line. And finally, for the shade, you just look at the Y value or the Y term and the symbol. And I'll show you because sometimes this changes, okay? If it's negative, then you would have to do something else. Okay, for the next one, I'm gonna go a little faster now that I clarified these parts. So, initial point, positive 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. The initial point is always on Y because it's the Y-intercept. Okay, that is why it's up. Then the rise and the run. This time the rise is -2. Remember, this is, they say, teacher, so this is Y, and this is X. I said, this is the Y-intercept, this is change on Y, and this is change on X. So yeah, if you want to see it that way, that's fine. So Y, Y, X. So now the Y in here, the change on Y is -2, so you go down 2. And the change on X is +1, so you 1 to the right, okay? 2 down, 1 to the right. The rise is -2, the run is +1. Okay, and what kind of line am I going to have? Well, I don't have the equal sign in here, so it's going to be a broken line. So more or less, and I didn't bring my... See why it's important to have, like, I know that it's gonna go down here, and it's by 2, that's the slope, so I just follow the slope basically. Now for the shading, again, I'm gonna look at the value of Y. The value of the coefficient is positive, so it's gonna be greater. The greater values on Y, remember this is Y, so I have this section, which is below the line, and this section, which is above. It's not which one is greater in size, but which values are bigger. The number 9, the number 8, the number 7 are bigger than the number 2, the number 1, the negatives. So the value of 9, 8, 6, okay? Not how many there are, because some people say, oh, but these are very little. It's not about that, it's the value of those points. And so Y is greater, these are the greater ones, so that's where I'm going to shade, above the blue line. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna do, I have one more with the slope intercept, and then I don't know if you recall these ones, when you have standard form, X and Y on this side, it's called standard. That's a different method. Okay, the initial point, and then rise over run, we don't have anything, so we need to put the 1 over 1. So now we're not just adding the rise, but we're adding, I mean, not only the run, but also the rise. If there is nothing, there is 1 over 1. So the initial point, which is the Y-intercept, it's on Y and it's negative, so you're going to go down 1 space. From that point, it goes up 1 and 1 to the right. Up because it's positive, to the right because it's positive. So positive, 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 and so on. And you can see the pattern that just goes like this, and at the same time you can see it going backwards, right? That's just gonna make it easier. Now in here we do have the equal sign, so that means that my line is going to be solid. Okay, the line is going to be solid, it's not going to be broken. And so for the shading, Y, we take Y, it's positive, so it's gonna be easy. Don't look at the equal, it's just look at this part right here. y is less, because it has one dot, less. It's not the greater part or the smaller section, okay? It's just the value. Which ones are smaller, the negatives or the positives up here? The negatives are less, so that's where I'm going to do the shading. Okay? Okay, now how do we do the ones with standard form? For the standard form, we're going to look for the x and y intercepts. I call it the viscous. Viscous are like eye crossed because the pupils are inside. And what this means is that when we're looking for the x-intercept, y has to be 0 because for example, in here, y doesn't go up or down, right? Y is 0. For the y-intercept, x doesn't move to the left or right because it's 0. Otherwise, it's not going to end up in the axis. So when you're looking for the x-intercept, y is 0. When you're looking for the y-intercept, x is 0. The opposite is 0. And so you can do all the work. I'm going to show you here how to find those intercepts. In fact, let's start with that. 2x plus 3y is less than 6. If we're saying that y is 0, 2x plus 3 times 0 is less than 6. 3 times 0 is 0 is less than 6. 2x plus 0 is 2x is less than 6. And then if you're multiplying, the opposite of multiplication is division. So x is less than 3. So we found the value of x is less than 3. We're just going to put the 3 in here. Okay. Now let's do the same thing. And I'm sorry I didn't leave enough space in here. I'm going to put it right here. To find the y-intercept, you replace x with 0. So in 2x plus 3y is less than 6. But now we're figuring out the y-intercept, so replace x with 0. So 2 times 0 plus 3y is less than 6. All I did was to replace that in the x. 2 times 0 is 0 plus 3y is less than 6. 0 plus 3y? 3y is less than 6. If you're multiplying, the opposite is 2. Divide, and so y is less than 2. So I'm going to put that 2 in the value of y for the y-intercept. Now let me show you a shortcut where you don't have to do this if your professor or teacher allows you. We didn't have these values. So if we're looking for the x-intercept, all I did was you can do is replace the y with 0. 3 times 0 is 0, so basically it just disappears. All you have to do is divide 6 divided by 2. The answer is, for x, 3. Again, look at that. We didn't have this, so we know that for the x-intercept, we replace y with 0. So basically it's going to disappear. And just divide 6 divided by 2, 3. We do the same thing. We didn't have this value. X was 0. Okay, x is 0 for the y-intercept. So we replace 2 times 0 is 0. We cover it instead, and we divide. 6 divided by 3, 2. And we have the value. So we're doing it mentally by replacing the 0 in here. It's just mentally instead of doing this. So it depends on what your teacher or professor asks. Okay, once we have those 2 points, and I'm going to do it with the shortcut only in the next 2 exercises, but once you have that, we look for the points. 3, 0, 3 on x, 0 on y. That's where my point is placed. 0, 2, 0 on x, 2 on y, that's where my point is. I don't have the equal sign. It's a broken line. Okay, and let me see if this can help me. It's a broken line. So I'm going to, and it's going to be a little bit because of this part, but we'll see. It's a broken line. I'll just move it. And the broken line is because it doesn't have the equal sign, okay? So you put the arrow right there, and look at the term of y. We're just gonna leave y, forget about this. I mean, we do need to know if it's positive, keep this symbol the same. Y is less. Which one is less? Not in quantity, not in the area or the little section of the line. No, which is less in value? Negatives are worth less than the positives, so since this is y is less, right here, and then we just start shading down below the broken line, okay? So this means that these points are included in the solutions, but in here, any point down here, but not the points on the line, okay? That's what that means. Okay, two more. We have also a standard form, meaning that x and y are on the left. So we're gonna look for the x and y intercepts with the viscous. Anytime you have x and y on that side, you can use this method if they don't specify. Then, to find x, y is 0. 3 times 0 is 0, so that disappears. All I have to do is divide 12 divided by -2 is -6. To find the y-intercept, x is 0. So -2 times 0 is 0. That disappears. Don't cover the sign in here, okay? And so 12 divided by 3 is 4. And that's it. You already found the points. So for the x-intercept, you have -6 on x. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to the left because it's negative, and then you don't go up or down because it's 0. For the y-intercept, x is 0, meaning you don't go left or right, but then you go up because it's positive. So right there. What kind of line am I going to have? It doesn't have the equal sign, so I don't have enough ink. I don't have a lapicito, okay? And so I'm gonna have a broken line again. Oops, I just went a little over. I need my ruler. Okay, more or less. Okay, and for the shade, I look at the y term, it's positive, so I just say y is greater than. If this was a -3, then you would have to get the tornado and switch that. Okay, you would switch this, would be less, but it's positive, so you just keep it. It says y is greater. What is greater? The values in here, which is 4, 3, 2, 1, negative, 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 or positive 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, these are greater values. Y is greater, so we're going to say that the shade is going to go with the greater numbers. Okay? Okay, now you can always test a point if you want, and I think I'm going to show it with this. You can just test 0.00 is the easiest to test. It should be 0, whatever, since it's not in the shade, this should be saying false, okay? So let's check it. If we have -2 times 0 plus 3 times the value of y is 0 is greater than 12. -2 times 0 is 0 plus 3 times 0 is 0 is greater than 12. Is it? 0 plus 0 is 0. Is it greater than 12? False. That means that our solution is correct because this is not shaded and it's not on the shade. Again, with this trick that I showed you, you shouldn't be worrying about the testing part. Okay, if you just look at the y value, that's very important, the y value, not the x. If it's positive, the term, you just bring up the sign and that's where you shade. Greater, up. Less than, below. Okay, so maybe you don't have to worry about this testing part anymore. Okay, now in here is what I was talking about when you have a negative for the coefficient of y. So same method, just because x and y are before the inequality symbol. If y is 0, x is -1. When x is 0, I cover x, that I should not cover it, okay? That belongs to the y. And then I say -1 divided by -1. If there is nothing in here, that means that there is a 1. So -1. And so negative divided by negative is positive. 1 divided by 1 is 1. So I already found the 2 points. For x, for the x-intercept is -1. For the y-intercept is +1. The line is going to be solid. And I'm just going to kind of follow the slope that I see in here. I notice that it's 1, 1, 1, 1. So I'm going to go from corner to corner. Yikes. Whoops. Okay, more or less. I'm sorry. Apologies for not having my ruler. And so for the shading, this is what's going on. You're going to put the y. You look that there is a negative coefficient. There is a negative sign with the number that belongs to the y. So what's going to happen? The tornado is going to come, and instead of less than, it's going to be greater or equal than. Okay, so don't look at this one for the shading anymore. It's not less because it was negative. Since it's greater than, that means that we're going to shade up here. Okay, because these are greater. And so that's where my shades are. If you're still confused with the shading or the broken and solid line, make sure you come and talk to me. So now you are able to do 3.6 and have fun.